Join us at the Lexington Comic and Toy Convention, March 23rd through 26th. We'll be at booths 1113 and 1114, decked out in cosplay, selling the latest Angel of Death merch. Tickets are available via the link in the description. Hope to see you there. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Composition of Imagination. I'm your host and author, Stevie Jo, and this is the show where we examine the worlds I've created, my writing, and how we get the books into your hands. And with me today, I have one familiar face, Book Guardian Superman, and our very special guest, this handsome hunk to my right, or to my left, is Moosey. This is my husband. He actually knows what's happening in Angel of Death all the way through book 7, because he is my guinea pig, I guess you would say, in that whenever I get done writing, I read it aloud to him, both so he can hear it, but also for me as like another pass through. You know what I mean? It's a proofreader. It is. And if you read it aloud, it sounds different. It does. You know, because I'm not just looking at it in my head. So he knows all this stuff through book 7. I've told him, please try your best not to spoil anything past book 4, because none of the others are even out yet. So we hope that
But it's coming though.
Yes. But we hope we won't spoil anything too much. But before we really get started, first I want to thank you for sitting in today.
No problem.
And before we really start asking the questions about the book itself, I have to ask you, put you through the same thing I put them through. Tell us who your favorite character in Angel of Death is and why.
Skyelar, the main person, I believe. I really like the journey that she's going on. Everything you've written for her so far just sounds incredible. Up to the point where the readers know and up to beyond that. So I think she's come a long way, and I think it's really good.
Thank you. Now tell us who your least favorite character is.
I would probably have to say Evie. She just kind of sounds like a pot stirrer a little bit. From
oh, wow. Well, okay, I agree with you there.
So always trying to make a mountain out of a molehill on purpose and just things of that nature.
Sure he's talking about Evie?
Every time she appears, he audibly rolls his eyes. It is as bad as whenever Tasha hears Ezra. Like, he hates her. So, well, thank you.
No problem.
So, I'll catch you up and everybody else up. So, the past couple weeks, if you've not joined us, we've been discussing character development and sort of individual plot analysis of Skyelar Jericho, our leading lady, his favorite character. So we've done that through the first 2 books, In the Beginning and False Idols. Today we're going to add Veiled Commandments into the mix, which is a very interesting book for her because things start to take a little bit of a turn. So just a reminder to all of us, when we talk about Skyelar, we are only going to focus on books 1 through 3, because that's what we know right now. And then next week we'll get into book 4. Here's what we didn't discuss that you need to know going into Veiled Commandments. Because we didn't discuss it last week because it had to do with Peyton. Like we had commented before, that was more of a Peyton-centric book. So,
very much.
What we didn't discuss was the implications of that big Jericho family blood draw whenever they were all in Verham Labs and the fight happened. When Peyton examines Skye's blood at the end of False Idols, she accidentally, like really happenstance, reveals that Skye herself could very well be the cure they've all been looking for creatures. And when Veiled Commandments opens, you learn that the conquistadors put together this hefty little report, as scientists do, so that James can read it and they called it the anomaly report, explaining all of their findings to him. So that's kind of where we are. It's been 2 weeks since that for Veiled Commandments to begin. So not a very long time frame. And for the first time that we actually see see Sky in Veiled Commandments, is in chapter 4. So we go the first little bit without seeing her. There's this big town hall meeting so that James can discuss the implications of the anomaly report to the public and kind of what he has decided to do about it. Of course, everyone is there, including Sky and Elias. And even everyone's favorite Sanguise has decided to show up to this town hall. Ezra is. He
had nothing better to do,
exactly.
So he just showed it. He literally just showed up. He's like, I might as well.
White hot.
Whether he's invited or not.
Exactly. So James is giving some impassioned speech about how the Jericho family has collectively chosen life by donating their genetics to research and, blah, blah, blah. So the first time that we actually see Sky, she's really having to stifle her laughter because she's hearing what James is saying, and she's like, what a fucking liar.
Typical politician.
Exactly. And as she reflects on the events of that day 2 weeks ago versus what her grandfather is telling everybody now, she can't help but wonder something that I think is a really valid question, which is, what would the county think if they knew the truth about how that event took place? The big Jericho family blood draw and everybody fighting and Sky knocking Peyton into next week. And what would the public think if they knew all about that?
Oh, the opinion of the Jerichos would definitely turn from, even though it's kind of a half and half, because they all love Noel.
Yeah.
James, and he's sort of the fixture, well, it's a Jericho.
You get the feeling
it's one of those things. He's just been there so long, especially like in a small county. The family's been there, in some sort of leadership position for so long that nobody knows any different. So they're just like, eh.
Yeah.
And so if the truth really did come out, well, James would probably be trying to book a ticket to, like, a faraway place. And most of the family would probably have to leave because, aside from, going into the creature community and stuff, they would have to leave because the entire town, if not most of the county, would immediately turn on the Jerichos.
Yeah.
Oh, you think so too?
Yeah, pitchforks and torches.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking kill the beast
and I mean,
style.
And think about it, when they were doing the town hall meeting, it wasn't that far from, pitchforks and torches.
Because the ruckus certainly gets made whenever he starts getting into the more details instead of the fluff.
Yeah.
About my family loves life and so
loves life.
So Sky also introspects when she's just mind-numbingly listening to James. She also introspects that she knows more than James gives her credit for. So what does she mean by that? What else could she know? And is it something that even we, the reader, don't know?
Oh, I'd say it's something that we don't know, that she's probably in that 2-week time period, if not before the blood draw, had come to realize in herself that she was concerned about. Because, she was, the whole time all this chaos and mayhem's going on, in her quote-unquote downtime, she was still working on her genetic research and stuff like that. So I would say somewhere along the line, she was probably sitting there coming across something and was like, I have an idea. Let me test something. And was like, this could be interesting. But didn't have the time to actually see the whole thing through.
Okay. That's a very interesting theory. While James just
drones on about how he needs the cooperation of the people for mandatory testing that he's implementing and blah, blah, blah. We see that Skye is not sitting alone in the crowd because she's sitting right next to Elias. And she's shaking her foot with worry. And because you see Elias has to do something that he's not really interested in doing. And Skye doesn't want him doing it either. But Elias has offered to work with the new creature activist group known as the Melotromy, or Tromy. I always say Tromy, I don't know why.
It just rolls out.
Yeah. And by doing so, he has been convinced to run against James for the fall mayoral election. Naturally, Skye is completely against this. She's terrified that if Eli gets mixed up in her family politics, that obviously she thinks things are going to change. Because look at how bad her family is. So, but...
Do you not see the train wreck I have for her family?
Exactly. But before he can stand up and formally announce his, nomination for mayor, Ezra decides to stand up and take a stand against Cordelia, which is very unusual. Everyone is surprised when he stands up, including Skye.
I'm surprised, but he brings up the one time he
Yes.
brings up a very, very
That's
good
what
point.
I was going to say. He actually, Delia is talking about how everybody who's getting tested and stuff will be treated like her own children. And Ezra stands up and said, which child? Because we all know you favor one way more than the other. So can you clarify?
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody, of course, starts to think, wow, that is kind of a valid question. And Skye is really surprised that he said something like that. And she kind of turns and stares at him with just kind of blatant uncertainty, where she's just like, the fuck? So, what do you think she thought of his little display? Because she never really reveals it to us. Instead, she just turns back around and, leans into Elias, almost like she's reminding Ezra, hey, we're over. But did she do that display for Ezra or for herself?
I think it was more for herself, because it was a good point. And the beauty of what he said got Cordelia to shut up.
You can tell she's his least favorite character.
Yeah. Yeah, I gathered.
Because, she's always got an answer for everything, and she literally vapor locked.
Yeah,
and I was
did.
like, nice.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that Ezra did it on purpose. It was a good point to bring up, but it was more a show that, hey, I may be lazy, I may just, be around, but I'm not that stupid.
Yeah.
And I think her Skye's reaction was actually one of genuine surprise.
Yeah.
And a little part of her brain that stuck on him was like, wow, okay, maybe he really does still care about me or something. And so that's why she sat there and went,
Yeah.
okay, to kind of maybe tell herself that, okay, I'm in a better place now, so I don't need to go back to that trash. And yet, you still see that pull, because even though she leaned in, she still kind of looked at it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
I was thinking about the same thing, where just so taken back by it, so just kind of caught up in the moment.
It was a very out of the ordinary thing for him to say. So when Skye returns her attention to the stage, she makes an observation about her cousin Ava. And she observes that recently, Ava's eyes are always aglow in amber, and suddenly she's involved with a group like the Melotromy, this activist group. It's all unusual. Bear in mind that the Melotromy is an activist group comprised of creatures and humans who want to protect the better interests of the creatures from the conquistadors and their chemicals and, alterations and all that. So it seems like, it seems like a natural fit for a creature to be involved in the Melotromy because of what it stands for, because all the creatures are like, dude, we just want protection from this. We just want to live peacefully. So why do you think, since even Ava is involved in it, why do you think Skye wouldn't want to be involved? Wouldn't a group like this be just what she needs to protect her from the quote-unquote real monsters? I mean,
on the surface, yes, but you know how groups are. They always start out with the best of intentions, but they always get, all it takes is one to poison the whole group. And you could have a creature that on the surface says, hey, we want, protect us and all this stuff, but really have a secondary ulterior motive.
Yeah.
And basically is trying to work behind the scenes to not only destroy them, but also help the conquistadors at the same time.
That's a valid fear, because we have, how many cults and stuff that do you hear about that started out one way,
Yeah.
So that's a valid worry.
To put it in like terms of a alternate movie, kind of reminds me of when Jenny was from Forrest Gump was involved with the Black Panthers.
Nice.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
kind of like that whole scenario.
Yeah, that's a good comparison too. So, let's see. After some debate and discussion, Elias does end up following through with the plan, much to Skye's chagrin. He gives James and the Conquistadors until the July 4th picnic to develop a functional cure. That's the important part, a functional cure. And if they can't, James will have to resign as mayor, and Elias will step in and take his place. That gives everybody, from the point of this book, that gives everybody 1 month to get their shit together. And it makes Skye really nervous, and which is something we'll see as we follow them to a Melotromy meeting in chapter 8. So Skye follows Eli down into Creature Comforts, which, as we know, is the exclusive basement club of the Devil's Fountain. But because of Elias's union with the Melotromy, he has agreed to close the club for most of the week so that the Melotromy have a safe place to meet. So that's why Skye comes down there with him, because remember, she didn't want anything to do with it before, but whether she likes it or not, this whole thing with the Conquistadors has gone from being about curing creatures to implying that they will actually save the county from Skye. Like their, their resident angel of death, because they're being blatantly just, there's unresolved issues that the Jerichos have with her because of the anomaly report, and they're like, we think she's the problem with the world, and we're gonna get rid of her. So
how would you not consider yourself part of a family that would say something like that? Even if they're using scientific terms,
yeah,
they're basically saying, we want you gone.
Yeah.
I would be like, you know what? I'm not part of this family no more. Peyton, if you want to come and see me, that's fine. Dad, you're cool. You come see me whenever. Rest of you, die. And just go on about it. Because really, I mean, to be that open about...
Yeah.
I mean, they basically declared war on her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why she's so uneasy, because, well, she's in the back of her mind starting to realize that this is going to get to a tipping point where I'm either going to have to leave, or I'm going to dig my heels in, and it's going to be a fight. And not just on a magical level or a creature level. It's going to be, like, physical.
Yeah. I do agree with you that it seems like that is on the horizon, and it will be interesting to see how things drive her which way.
And the townspeople, it's kind of interesting how you kind of frame them as they're not really going one way or the other. Mm-hmm. They're literally staying neutral and just going, I want to see how this plays out. They're just
the
like
popcorn meme.
I mean, literally, nobody, because if you notice, you do see some people that are saying, okay, yeah, let's get rid of the creatures. And then you've got some that sit there and say, well, actually, the Jerichos are the problem. But they're very small groups. Yeah. As a whole, the town is kind of just sitting back going, well, let's see how this plays out. I wonder if it's actually going to come to fisticuffs or somebody going to pull a gun,
Yeah. Skyelar, as she's just kind of worrying about Elias's involvement and all that, she really, in this moment, feels like she carries the weight of Murr County on her shoulders because of the way the Jerichos frame it, like you said. Mm-hmm. And she just can't shake the feeling that something bad is going to happen if Elias continues his mayoral ruse or race or whatever you want to call it. Because he doesn't even want to do it, but he's doing it for her. So, Skye really wants to support Elias and the cause, because it is safe to say she does believe in the creature cause. But something about the entire situation really causes her a lot of hesitation and fear. And when she expresses some of this to Elias, he reads her as only he can and promises that nothing is going to change between them. And she tries to rationalize it by saying, you know what? I need to believe him because he hasn't broken a promise to me at all, unlike nearly everyone else in her life. So that holds a lot of weight with her. And she admits to herself that she fears, quote, losing all of that to a dark and desolate unknown. So why do you think she's so extreme with this? Like, if Eli wins the race, she should have nothing to worry about anymore, because she won't be hunted by the humans the way she is now. Her family won't be around to do anything about it. So why doesn't she seem to recognize his involvement as a positive instead of feeling like she's going to lose everything?
Because she understands her family. Her family has been in power for generations.
Yeah.
Do you really think on any level that, okay, say James loses, he has to resign, Elias steps in. You don't think that somebody, Cordelia, any of those people don't know people that could do some damage?
They might.
I mean, her fear really boils down to that Elias will do something to help not only the creatures and the county, but it'll cost him his life, because she doesn't trust her own family, obviously. And there are some people out there that probably would go that extra mile to make sure that Elias is not allowed to actually take the oath of office.
Yeah. Well, Skye just kind of lets Eli calm her down a little bit in spite of all her fears. And he even goes so far as to just pull her face towards his in a moment that we're just like, is he gonna kiss her? Is he gonna? And then nope, he just gives her a kiss on the cheek, and that drives him insane. He's had it up to here with Elias. So, but still, Skye melts into him, and they feel that spark again. So remember, this spark she's felt with him before. And I'm not talking about that figurative butterflies like, ooh, we have electricity.
No, literal electricity.
No, literal, yes. A spark between them, like trying to light a fire on the wet ground, is how it's trying, without a fire starter. That's how it's sparking. And each time we see this spark, it seems to kind of burn a little more each time, to where they kind of notice it. So what do you think is happening here? Are they really just so physically attracted to each other that it's manifesting itself in a physical form because of their magic?
Yes and no. I think what it is Elias has this barrier in place because, he has his rules and he can't break those rules. But the longer and more time he spends around Skye, the more that wall starts to erode. And that the sparks are the energy seeping through just a little bit.
Okay.
And he realizes it. Skye doesn't realize it to a point.
Yeah.
She's just like, oh, well, hey, what's this? This is great.
Yeah.
Let's keep this going. And then he's like, nope, back up. We can't do this.
Yeah.
And at some point, that wall's going to come down.
Yeah.
Whether he wants it to or not. And, you can only go so long before you say, no. And then finally, you're just wore down to the point you can't.
Yeah.
Attraction.
Do you think it's just... Well, no, it's because it can be that they're physical, because that was the other part of my question is, do you think that they're so physically attracted to each other and the magic kind of just creates that spark?
Yeah.
You think that's what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well...
I would say that, but at the same time, if that was the case, then when they first got together at her house, that house would have burned to the ground.
Yeah, because they did go a little farther than just a kiss on the cheek.
They did, but at the same time, the walls were down.
Yeah.
So it's something else.
Okay.
It may be the magic that's trying to connect with each other because they're both mythics.
Right.
But physical attraction, yes, it's definitely there. But if it was that, like I said, they've already gone way further than that before.
Yeah.
And there's buildings still standing and the county still exists, so.
He's convinced that if they get together the first time it happens, yeah.
It's going to be like in a freaking anime,
So they're going to fly and hover above one another.
Possibly, and then you're going to see like all this energy sitting there moving around and then blow out and it looks like a giant mushroom cloud and you go, whoa, what happened there? I mean, granted, everything may still stay put and it's just a burst of really just wind and energy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably going to be something 4th of July could not possibly touch.
Well, I don't know. We wait until Blessed Implosion because that's one hell of a fireworks show, So Skye kind of, when Elias just kisses her on the cheek and stuff, she kind of just resigns herself, to being there for Eli through the campaign because she promised she would. And she doesn't want to turn her back on him now because she really does.
I'm going to be the doting wife.
Yeah. So... Well, we then learn that over the last couple weeks, which is the time between Book 2 and Book 3, Skye has tried to decipher the foreign body that Peyton ingested that made her sick. Remember, she showed up on Skye's doorstep damn near dead, and Skye pulled the thing out of her. Recall that when Skye got all of that out of Peyton, neither Skye nor Elias knew exactly what that thing was, and they still don't. That foreign body that she pulled out. But as Skye experiments on it, she did discover a couple things, and one of them is that only her own genetics managed to kill it, which explains why she's so valuable to the conquistadors while also being public enemy number 1. And she's being pegged as the savior to humans in that her DNA...
Screw humanity.
In that DNA very well could cure, her DNA could cure creatures and restore the human population without killing anyone. That's what's being told to her. But she thinks it's total bullshit. She's like, there's no way. She would rather die first, is her literal way of thinking. Excuse me. Now, is that something that might come to fruition in the future? Like if the conquistadors stay on this course and develop the cure with her DNA and whatever, will we witness Skye have to give her life for the cause? Is that something you think she really would do?
I don't think she'd give up her life for the cause. She'd give up her life. I look at it from Verhome Labs' point of view, which is, you know, dead or alive, you're coming with me.
That is.
I mean, really,
very much. Yeah.
Because you don't need.
Yeah.
You don't need a live sample to get the blood and the DNA.
Yeah.
So, in Cordelia's mind, really, she's trying to play by the rules, but at the same time, she's trying to line up all her ducks in a row so that she corners Skye in a position where there's nowhere for her to run.
Yeah.
There's no one to protect her, and either it's going to be fight or flight, but she won't be able to fly.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh. Clear my throat. I did. Okay. So, by contrast to if Skye would give her own life, do you think instead she would take a life if it meant creatures would be saved?
Yes.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, let's add another layer. What if that creature was Elias? Would she still do it?
It would be a hard sacrifice, but I think she would.
I think she would do everything she could before.
Yeah.
And then finally would, yeah.
What if it was Peyton?
What, have sacrificed Peyton?
Uh-huh.
I think about the same.
Yeah, she would
Okay.
do everything she could, but...
Before, but if it came down to it,
Okay.
Yeah.
The next time we see Skye is actually in chapter 15, which is by and large my favorite chapter in this book. We've talked a lot about the intimate moments throughout the Angel of Death series, and that's not going away because I firmly believe that true colors are shown and relationships are developed more in the quiet intimacy than on like the battlefield or out in the public, like that kind of thing. I think they really evolve better in those quiet moments that you don't necessarily remember with vivid recall later. So Skye and Eli are no different in that respect. When we see her in chapter 15, she's very frustrated that her family roped Eli into this just ridiculously glorified bet, is what it really comes down to. She doesn't want to brood on the stupid things that her family is doing, but she just can't help it. She really had a good thing going in the last year, but nothing seems to last forever. She's getting to the point where she's really not so much worried about Elias and her relationship with him as much as she's worried about just being alive in the near future because of this whole bet now happening. Her questions are like, will creatures be exterminated? Will she be butchered and used for resources? These are the things that plague her now, and she doesn't quite know how to resolve any of it because it's so out of the ordinary and abnormal. And to make matters worse, she has been bitten by the jealousy bug a little bit because a new character has been introduced, and she's very close to Elias. So we haven't talked much about Lilith to this point because Veiled Commandments is the first time she's introduced. So what we know of her, just a quick rundown because it is important for Skye's feelings.
Yeah.
A quick rundown is what we know of Lilith. She's a very old colleague and confidant to Elias. Apparently he saved her from a toxic relationship. And then when...
Three guesses what that was.
And then when he needed a bar manager for the Devil's Fountain, he asked her to come along, much to the chagrin of the rest of his employees. What really drives Skye crazy is the fact that Lilith lives with Elias. And she's really worried that there's something more to Lilith and Elias's relationship than meets the eye. Skye lets herself, she really allows herself to be a little upset about the Lilith situation. But when Elias comes over to her house in this chapter, of course she can't stay mad at him. He's never really given her a reason to mistrust him, so she's kind of trying to take the approach of why let it really get in the way now. So Sky even poses the question to herself, just kind of a rhetorical question of, why does Elias have to be so good? He's taught her so much about herself, her magic. He even helps her cope with the stressors of her family. And in learning more about herself and her magic, Sky discovers, and in some cases rediscovers, abilities that even Elias doesn't have. So the prime example of that, of those kind of abilities that he's helped her reforge, is in this chapter where she reaches up toward the sky and manages to pluck. She literally just reaches up and plucks little pieces of starlight and brings them down to earth. Sky, rather, takes the pieces of starlight that she collected and, very literal, takes the starlight and puts them, kind of arranges them in a little galaxy type shape, formation. She floats them in the air on her lawn, and of course Eli is amazed, and she's pretty proud of how far she's come with her abilities in the last year. But when she looks at the little planets moving, she notes that they're wobbly and they're not on a good path for their orbit. She has no central point for them to orbit around, is what it comes down to. When she turns to Eli, she feels so safe and relaxed and free. And in fact, her mind actually creates this vision that I do want to just talk about very briefly. It's a vision of her laying on a soft oasis of emerald grass beneath shining stars with wildflowers all around her, and there's no sound but the low hoot of an owl and a gentle breeze. It's really comforting to her, and that prompts her to decide to pluck some light from somewhere else, and she gets it from Elias's eye, the iris. She takes some of the emerald. So with a little pinch of her fingers, she pulls out the smallest little speck of emerald green from his eyes, and when she puts it in her makeshift galaxy, the starlight begins to orbit successfully around it. So why do you think that is? What kind of magic is at work? What the hell was up with that little vision she saw? What's going on here?
That's her utopia.
Okay.
That's her super safe place. That she in her darkest moments, that's where she's her happiest.
Okay.
Wildflowers around her, nice. I'd say the description sounds like something like a nice summer night.
Yeah.
And, just the breeze blowing, and it's completely relaxing.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was interesting that she saw herself.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't see herself and Eli.
Yeah.
But it does beg the question a little bit. As much as Eli has helped her over the year, if he's not exerting some sort of magic to her, unbeknownst to Sky herself, that is able to help calm her.
Yeah.
Versus, herself. Because every time she sees, it's like, he's so perfect, he's so good, and all this other stuff. There could be a little bit of magic being used on her. Because we know he's had a long past.
Yeah.
He's not been a Boy Scout.
No.
All his life.
You can't. Being
And
alive
granted,
that
you
long.
can sit there and play a game.
Even Captain America couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, he was frozen, so.
I was frozen today.
Different movie.
Yeah.
No.
And so, he has that darkness somewhere.
Yeah.
And he's doing everything he can to play himself up as, yes, I'm this good, upstanding person. And it's like, no. And maybe that's the cynicism of, humanity. Is that we look at it from a human point of view of, well, you can sit there and say you're all good and stuff, but we all know better.
Okay.
And I think in Sky's eyes, I mean, the man can't do any wrong. Granted, up to this point, he's done everything right.
Yeah, he has.
But at the same time, she should be a little wary and be kind of curious. Why is it every time I'm around him, everything seems fine? Versus what reality is.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it just shows that her utopia or whatever would be very nice, but it does take a little bit of him to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it...
That was very beautiful.
Thank you. It does have to have a little bit of him in there. Even if it's just the smallest little green from his eyes, or maybe just a hint from his hair color, or something like that. Just a little something to make it perfect. So it's not perfect without him.
That was beautiful. And you completely understood the metaphor. Like, just totally took the planet metaphor, and that was said so beautiful, man. So when Elias, here's the other part of that metaphor. When Elias has her look at the galaxy from the outside instead of standing in it where she was while she was placing everything, she sees a different perspective and notes that the, quote, kingdom she created was beautiful and perfect. Even the little imperfections in each star that she pulled down were things that she absolutely deemed perfect. So that kind of answers the question that I had of, you know, what do you think the galaxy really means as she's examining it? Because that kind of sums it up right there. I mean, it's not the one singular answer, but it's safe to say she looks at that and sees what she feels when she's around him, like we were just talking about. So they kind of bled into each other. Good job. So then Eli is like, all right, no more planets. Let's like do something productive or something. So he moves the little balls of light around and he makes a glowing starlight chess pieces. Sky takes the, you know, moisture in the air and forms like fluffy clouds for them to sit on. So they just kind of float on these clouds with their floating game of chess and glowing. It's a very fun, like, magic moment.
It's a fun moment, but I'm sitting there the whole time reading that going, you're sitting on a wet cloud. I don't care how soft it is. You're sitting on a wet cloud.
But it's so soft. So she, as they're playing the game, she kind of learns a little bit more about Elias. So she outright asks him, for one, why is he placating to her instead of just moving on and making a life for himself and helping people like he clearly wants to do? And he tells her this is the part of his life that matters. And she really just is like, dude, you don't understand. I am the cause of all ruin because I've been told so time and again by literally everybody else in my life. And Elias makes a really bold statement in that he says, you know, we're more alike than what you think. But he would give up everything that he has to just continue playing with and or beaten by Skyelar at Starlight Chess. And then Sky jokes that he never really did like to admit when she got the best of him. So let me ask here, why chess? Why did I choose that game of all games? And do you think that Sky won because she's good at it? Or is Eli letting her win as he insinuates?
Chess is a game all about strategy. So there's a strategy there. Obviously, they're not going to play checkers where you just have to try to get to the other side or something like that. There is a deep strategy with chess because you try to figure out how your piece can move and how their piece can move and so on like that. So I would think it's just a very strategic plan. If he, like metaphorically, if he was to do this, how would she maybe not reply, but how would she
But you think
respond?
He's kind of using it as a test almost of what can he do, how far can he push her kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
If I was to do this, would she do this or would she do that? And if I do this, she'll do that, so I could definitely do this, but I need to do this before that if she does this before that.
Okay. So do you think then that he's letting her win when they play?
It's possible. I think so.
Why would he let her win?
Well, you gotta ask her.
I was gonna say, seriously,
But no,
if there's a girl you really like, you're gonna sit there and absolutely crush her in chess just because.
Maybe not absolutely crush her.
Yeah, really. I mean, you suck at this game.
That's what I'm trying to get at is he doing it out of his affection for her, or is he really that shitty of a player, even though he knows how?
No, I think she actually did play though, because
she's actually trying.
Yeah, because I used to know a lot of people that were in the science field, and that's one of the things, for some reason, I've never fully understood why, but that's how they would, decompress. They would sit there and start playing chess.
Yeah.
And, I mean, thinking 12 steps ahead, yeah, that can hurt your brain after a while, but for them, it was a lot easier than sitting there going through all these different equations and formulas and all this other stuff, and it just helped them just kind of center themselves.
Yeah.
So more than likely, she probably did that as well, and we're not talking grandmaster or anything.
Right, but just a casual player.
And same could be said for Elias. I mean, maybe he did it. Obviously, over thousands of years, he's probably played some epic games, but he's probably not played a whole lot in recent years.
Yeah.
So, whatever skill he may have had, let's say 500 years ago, he's probably like a casual player now. And
so, to that end, as I've said numerous times before, magic is a use it or lose it kind of thing, and so chess, like you just said, the skill to know how to play kind of wanes without exercising that muscle, just like magic. So that may also be why I chose that game. So anyway, they clear the board after the game is over, and all the starlight goes back up into the night sky. But the emerald, the emerald piece that she stole from Elias's iris, he takes and makes a necklace for her. He actually gently borrowed emerald. Elias removes his own necklace, which you may recall me saying is a black onyx that he wears. He takes the onyx off the chain, stuffs that in his pocket, and just creates a little cradle out of the chain and puts the emerald in it, and then puts it around her neck. It is a literal piece of him that she can carry. What does that mean to her? If it means anything, or is it just a cute little trinket where it's like, oh, he gave me something? Oh, no. That means something. I mean, a little piece of him's always with her. So, if they're apart, and like, say she's in a super stressful situation, all she has to do is touch that and realize he's there. Yeah. So that does mean a lot. Okay.
Exactly.
So to close out this chapter, Skye promises to help Eli get better at chess if he promises to always show her the light, kind of rom-com cheese. Because it shines, she says, the light that she feels shines brightest when she's with him. Elias takes her in his arms and they dance as lightning bugs float around him like little twinkle lights. And this chapter, the whole thing is absolutely loaded with critical information, both about both characters and sort of plot development around them. They have such little dialogue. If you've been following our videos, you know that I'm a huge fan of creating memorable moments without dialogue, so, or as little as possible. And this chapter does that for this book. They have such little dialogue that you really have to examine every moment, every glance, every secret thought, all of that stuff. And I'm talking about things hidden between the lines, such as hints about their past, their present, and future, all in one chapter. But I'm not going to hand feed it to you. It's all in between the lines. So if you have to use the holy biblical text here, you can. But tell me what you think this chapter is attempting to show you as the reader, and why do you think it's my favorite of the whole book?
I think it's your favorite, just love.
Aww. Fuck Valentine's Day.
I was going to say that chapter was kind of rom-commy, but
it was.
But with all the heaviness up to that point, and I'm not just talking about this particular book,
right?
Just in the story,
everything building.
You needed a moment where you just said that, and let everything kind of just sort of die down, reset. And yeah, you really do look between the lines, and you can see it. And what I take from it is they're soulmates, period. No questions asked.
Okay.
They're always going to be, at this moment onward, they're connected.
Okay.
You know, they could be apart, and they'll always have that connection. And that solidified it, and I think that's what kind of calmed Skye down a little bit.
Yeah.
Was when the necklace was created and stuff, it told her, okay, it's a step. It's not the big step I wanted, but it's a step.
Like
so
you
it's
had said
showing
before, he's trying.
Yeah, he's trying, and this was a move in the right direction versus the I almost want to say it's like, you know, you go for to catch a ball.
Yeah.
And instead of reaching your arms out, you kind of go and dinosaur it.
It's like the hesitation moment. Yeah.
And then the ball flies past, and you go, dang, I should have caught that.
Yeah.
And up to this point, in a way, that's what Elias has been doing. He's been, oh yeah, I should have done that.
Yeah.
And she's standing over there going, if you don't do something.
Yeah. No, that's a really good way to put it, because I think that's a very accurate depiction of his struggle. You know, so, and we'll definitely be talking a lot about that whenever we do his series of Murmurs of Murr County. So, of course, nothing good lasts forever, because like you said, this was our moment to just breathe and just kind of enjoy magic. Because, well, unfortunately, we're slapped back to reality in the very next chapter, because we see that there's a beast stalking them on Skyelar's property. First of all, before we even talk about that, how the hell did Skyelar not feel that something else was there? Because the entire next series of events could have been avoided if she'd noticed. So how did she not? She feels when everybody comes on her property.
She was just so caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're sitting there, oh, I just got a piece of somebody. And everything else is out the window.
So, okay, because I predicted that would be the answer. So, do you think that bodes poorly for her future? Almost like, the reason I ask is because it's almost like she became so monomaniacal whenever it comes to him, she forgets anything else in the world exists. So, is this a sign that Eli is bad for her?
No.
I don't think so. I think it's a moment, because most of the time she's pretty aware of her surroundings, but she's also very frustrated too. So that plays into it.
Yes.
You're gonna be singularly focused on a certain thing. If you're that frustrated, you haven't cracked it yet.
That's true.
So once maybe the frustration's over, maybe she'll be more, her senses will be more attuned.
Okay. So, well, the point is, regardless of what was causing her, excuse me, regardless of what was causing her to be distracted, the point is she wasn't paying attention, and the beast stalking them attacked. Eli saw it first and shoved Sky behind him to protect her, so he gets bitten and clawed on his chest, like kind of by his rib cage. Sky starts freaking out, but the beast bites her arm too, so she's like, ah, shit. And then the beast disappears. Sky is left in full-on panic mode, a mode that I think it's safe to say we've never really seen her in before. And even when she ended her relationship with Azra in Book 1, she still wasn't totally in, like, panic mode, like this. So this is, her immediate goal becomes to save Elias. That's what she keeps repeating to herself. He's trying to calm her down and get her to look at the bigger picture.
Look, it's fine.
And he's trying to get her to see the bigger picture, which is harkening back to the previous chapter. But she's hell-bent. Finally, he gets her to calm down, and he puts some of the salve on her wound, because she made like a salve for him, and he put some on her wound. Finally, she kind of calms, but it's not for long, because she's still trying to determine what kind of beast was that, where did it go. She wants to go find it because she's afraid that it might be feral, since it just attacked and it's not even the full moon. But Elias will not have it. He takes her to her bedroom, and in a rare personal use of his magic, so this kind of touches on where you're like, there's something, but he insists that he doesn't use magic on her, and this is one of the rare times that he does, because he just puts a hand on her forehead and allows his calm to flow into her so that she'll go to sleep. And then he leaves. So,
hell-bent too.
Question: why was Sky in such a panic over Elias getting bitten? Keep in mind, she's seen him get attacked by a lichen before. In fact, he was injured by Peyton in the first book, and said that he has an immunity to lichens. So this should not be new to her. So what do you think caused so much pain in her over this and panic?
The style of attack.
The surprise.
Yeah. She had a moment of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That she normally doesn't have, and for that moment, and the severity of the wound. Now, the wound that he had in the first book wasn't anywhere near as dangerous as the one he had in this, because of the location. It was a pretty good bite in the ribcage area. Well, there's a lot of organs right there. There's a lot of area you could sit there and do some damage, and potentially you could die.
Yeah.
So, and the fact it was a sudden attack. You know, normally she can see something coming. She didn't have her radar on, and the beast came up.
Yeah.
Plus the fact she really couldn't see what kind of beast it was.
Yeah, because she's like, who, what? Yeah.
Where Elias did.
Yes, he did. And we will definitely talk about that in his series.
I think going on like what he said, she had a moment of humanity. She just had this incredible thing where she got the light from his eyes and was just floored and everything. And to go from that to a vicious attack, it's like, OMG, what is happening? Even though in the back of her mind she knows, you know, he'll be okay, it's still just to go from one to the other. It
kind of scrambles your process for a minute. Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah, it did. Next day, Sky wakes up alone and very nervous because she's healed from her injury, and of course she earned a new tattoo from it in the form of amber lichen eyes. but she cannot get in touch with Elias to make sure he's okay. So for all she knows, he's dead in a ditch somewhere.
There he goes again.
Yep. So with only the knowledge that it was a lichen that attacked, Skye just automatically assumes that it's Peyton, because, I mean, her thought process is, who the hell else could have the balls to encroach on her property and not cause her serious alarm when she's otherwise distracted? So that's kind of why she hones in on Peyton. So she speeds over to Peyton's house, literally just barges in without so much as a how do you do, and the argument instantly begins. Peyton is super defensive because Skye literally just threw the door open and acts like she owns the place and starts accusing Peyton for the attack right in front of Wesley. So Peyton drags Skyelar outside so that they could talk privately, because she does not want Wesley to hear any of this. And Skye explains what happened about the attack last night, and she just cries at the thought of losing Elias, and she even tells Peyton as much. And Peyton tries to be diplomatic about the whole thing in spite of being barged in on that way and blamed for something so bad.
Hey, at least you know they were in a normal moment. You know,
Yeah.
It wasn't like they were in the middle of something.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then she blew the doors open.
Exactly. So Peyton tries to be diplomatic and ask for evidence as to why Skye thinks that Peyton was the one who would provoke her this way. Skye's confusion behind that question prompts Peyton to admit that she was at the Devil's Fountain last night, so it couldn't have been her. And she even offers for Skyelar to read her memories, something that we know from experience that Peyton cannot stand. And Skye hears what she says and is a little suspicious about it and skeptical that that's the truth, but she rationalizes it as, you know, if she's willing to let me read her thoughts like this when she never does, then she's probably telling the truth. Like, because this is a moment where I don't think she would lie to me. So she firmly believes, Skyelar does, wholeheartedly believe that the two of them could never kill each other, regardless of how many fights they have. But instead of choosing to dwell further on the attack, Skyelar attempts to make amends for being so rude and blaming Peyton. And she offers to help Peyton because while they're just having that little moment, she senses that Peyton's wolf is wanting more freedom. And when Peyton does ask, "Can you help me?" Skye teases that Peyton just will not be happy until she learns how to live as both the beast and the woman. And of course, Peyton doesn't believe that. Skye casually mentions that there is bound to be someone out there who isn't Wesley who will love Peyton just as she is. And Peyton starts to talk about someone named Derek that we've never heard of before. But then she cuts herself short and changes her mind and just says that she wants to live a life without magic fights and all this stuff. And Skye just is like, you know what? That would be such a boring life to live. And instead, she offers to have a night out for just the two of them, where they can casually bond and talk about shit and all that. Chapter 22 sees Skye already at the Devil's Fountain, and she's brooding over not being able to get in touch with Elias, of course, while she waits on Peyton to arrive. She's been trying to get in touch with Elias all day because the attack last night, she's still really worried, but he won't even let her know if he's alive. She introspects that if he was anything but alive and well, her whole world would crumble apart and the earth would swallow her. She says that walking through the fires of hell would be easier for her to handle than the thought of some kind of harm coming to Elias. And she's sitting there drinking. She finally feels his presence. He's in creature comforts with the melotromy. So he's alive, but he's ignoring her for some reason. So she doesn't really get to focus on that because her thoughts are interrupted when Peyton walks in to a reception of people saying hello to her. You know, the joke is that she's like Norm from Cheers, but they don't understand that joke. So that's kind of the...
They don't know what Cheers is.
Yeah, it's just a funny joke. So it's fascinating to Skyelar that Peyton comes in and receives that kind of reception because Peyton never was the popular kind of girl. And wouldn't you know it, they can't even sit down and say hello and enjoy their first drink together without being interrupted by none other than everyone's favorite sanguines. Ezra comes slinking over. See, I said everyone's favorite.
Yeah.
He comes slinking over with his ripped jeans and gaudy as fuck diamond belt buckle. He's wearing a clean white shirt, but Skyelar does note that he reeks of that rusty blood type smell. And he was even growing some stubble along his jaw, which is unusual because he was always historically clean shaven. Skye is certainly taken aback a little bit by his unkempt appearance, but she doesn't care enough to comment out loud. She just thinks it to herself. In fact, the whole time he's around, she doesn't talk to him at all. Peyton does all the talking for the both of them, thankfully, since she and Ezra have gotten, let's just call it, chummy lately.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop Ezra from putting a hand on Skye's back just so he can touch her again, and he whispers in her ear to call him later if she gets bored with her sister, and then he kisses her cheek and leaves. Why? You knew a question was coming here. Why would Skye let him even enter her orbit in the first place after everything that he put her through? Is she just starting to fall back into old ways? Like, maybe when Ezra came in, he's using his magic on her again to corrupt her. Or maybe it's just as she says to Peyton, they have an intense past that'll take time to forget. Either way, why?
That's a bullshit story.
She needs him for something.
What does she need him for? What could she possibly need him for? After
Turnover
everything?
lease. That's what she needs him for.
You're
and
not-
that is it.
Need to be able to maybe study him to figure out the creature that attacked him, that attacked her and Elias. Possible.
It's a possibility. Carnal is definitely in there because we know she's frustrated. So
Plus, he's an arrogant asshole. He's going to sit there and come in and be like, hey, babe, you know you still want this.
yeah,
And that was the whole move.
his opinion is that she could never really let go of him. So now, much to Skye's surprise, Peyton finally admits that she would like to work alongside Skye instead of fighting against her. She's tired of fighting, but Skye hears her saying this and is like, I mean, you're known for just day to day. You've got whims about how you feel about the whole creature situation, and you constantly flip back and forth. So what makes this
Any
the real time? How am I supposed to believe you? And Peyton insists, I'm just trying to be a good big sister. I'm trying to look out for you. But Skye still doesn't buy it. And then the truth finally comes out about why Peyton's saying all this. Delia wants Peyton and Noel to convince Skye to donate her genetics to the Conquistador cause willingly or else. Quote
I
unquote.
love that or
I'll
else.
take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the or else. Peyton is trying a different approach than what Delia would like and genuinely does want to work together on some kind of cure instead of using Skye until she's dead. So Skye presents the scenario to Peyton that they work together and find a cure, which would, no doubt, anger their mother and put her out of business. Peyton reflects on it and changes the subject, which is interesting. Instead, she says, did you hear Dad asked for a divorce? And Skye was not surprised at all, says it sure took him long enough. And realistically, Skye knows that Cordelia and Noel's marriage has been dead since the incident. That damn incident. It keeps popping up.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it always just, it roars through like a tornado, ruining lives, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just a thing that everybody in the town's aware of, but everybody's story's different about how the incident went down.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of, this tornado called the incident just kind of comes through, leaves pieces of the puzzle for us to speculate, and calls it a day. So here's another piece that we can pick up from this moment.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows how it happened or why, meaning the incident. All they know is Skye was vengeful towards her sister. That's something new that we learned in this moment of talking about it. So, any thoughts about the incident and what happened now that you have that tiny little piece to add to your puzzle? I mean, we know the girls fight all the time, so what could Peyton have done to make Skyelar so angry that she would destroy an entire lab? I mean, we're talking big anger here.
Maybe it could have been something. She might have hurt Noel.
Peyton might have hurt Noel.
Yeah, and being as young as Skye was at the time, she saw that, or thinks she saw that, and where she hasn't at that age had no real control over her magic. She just, went straight fire starter mode and just blew the whole freaking place to smithereens in a fit of rage, even though it was, we don't know what was really going on.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be a lot of different things because they were younger then, so it could have just been something very small that blew up to something big.
Could have.
It didn't have to be something big right off the bat.
Yeah.
It just could have...
Almost like a snowball effect?
Yes, exactly.
Like Peyton T.
Like Skye finally, it was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly.
That was it. Motherfucker, you're gonna pay.
Yeah.
That's kind of, okay. Which is very possible because we see how Skye and Peyton constantly, they don't always have the big fights like they did in book 2.
Yeah.
They may have these quarrels.
But I think that's not really, it's not a sisterly thing. I think, honestly, it's Skye's magic versus Peyton's creature.
So they're both behaving more like creatures than they want to admit.
Yeah.
We will not know the exact reason behind the incident for a couple more books. And Skye does not offer any other info to Peyton or to us about it. Instead, she just tells Peyton that she's willing to work with her if Peyton helps her with an anomaly issue of her own, referring to the thing that attacked Peyton in book 2 that she extrapolated from her. If Peyton is willing to help her with that, then Skye, she says something very pivotal here. She says, I will give you the cure you've been wanting. And Peyton's reaction is what all of us are probably thinking when we read Skyelar say that. We're like, what? How the hell? There is no way she has a cure. But Skye insists that she does, and that she hasn't said anything about it because all magic comes with a price, as I've said numerous times and will continue to say. So this magical cure, Skyelar says to Peyton, it comes with a price higher than anyone can afford to pay. What do you think that price is, and why would Skye still agree to give the cure over if the price is really that high? Alternatively, something more to think about, is Skye just yanking Peyton's chain in order to tap her for better conquistador knowledge?
Oh no, I think she really has figured it out.
Okay.
Because, like I said, in her downtime, to keep her mind sharp, and especially with everything going on in town, she's been working on it. Especially with what happened with Peyton, she's been working more hours, and after hearing the anomaly report about,
Yeah.
I'm the savior of all humanity, and she's
But
like,
I have to die in order to do it.
So I gotta go check this. So she probably was working on something, and then one night or one afternoon, she actually came across it and was like, "Uh-oh, this could be something," and it could be. It would sacrifice the creature instead of making them whole.
Yeah.
It would sacrifice the creature and potentially tear the human to the point where their psyche would probably be crushed.
Okay.
Because think about it, you've had that creature since you were born.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been a part of you, and then have that ripped out.
Yeah.
What's left? You're an empty shell.
That's a very, very valid. When they go back to Skyelar's house after being at the bar, they go back to Skye's house so that Skye can show her this cure. And they toke up and joke about how Noel would crucify them if he saw them partaking. And as Peyton continues to get more stoned, she asks a really loaded question. She says, "Where did it all go wrong with our family?" And Skye just kind of ignores the question for a little bit while she sets up the anomaly that she wants Peyton to examine and things like that. And then after a beat, Skye finally answers the question because she says, "I believe it all went wrong with me." Skye believes that she's never done anything but hurt the Jericho family, and she supposes it was her aim to really hurt Delia in the incident, a mission that she accomplished with flying colors. Then Peyton...
Don't say that too enthusiastically.
Yeah.
I mean...
Oh, who's my least favorite character? Gee. Then Peyton says something really interesting. She says that not everyone thinks that Skye was involved with the incident. Hello? What? Skye brushes it off as those are just conspiracy theories. She remembers the incident. She remembers being involved. But Peyton seems to think the conspirators actually make sense. Something that Skye finds difficult to believe since, Peyton is always flip-flopping how she feels about the family. So Skye even says, "You're telling me I was there, but I didn't set the building on fire. And if I didn't kill your..." and cuts herself off. Who or what does everyone think Skyelar killed in the incident? That's another piece you're getting. Kind of. Because I'm asking who. I don't tell you who. But who or what do you think it is?
Maybe she had another sister.
Ooh.
She had another sister, and maybe she killed him, and that's what...
Well, that wouldn't be very surprising.
And that's what her and her sister now are kind of fighting about.
And that would explain Cordelia's...
It could be.
Very much hatred, So, I don't know.
There is something... There's that piece that we're all keep getting it.
Uh-huh.
And again, it goes all the way back to everybody has a different take on how the incident went down.
Yeah.
And yet nobody, when you sit there and question every person, it's always a different answer.
Well, Peyton seems, right now, convinced that Skye didn't do anything because she believes another mythic implanted the memory in Skye's mind. This is a really important conversation that they have here, both for their relationship and Skye's character development, because you're learning more about the mythic. So, although Skye doesn't want to believe it, we learn just how powerful she could and might actually be. Peyton asks the biggest question: how hard would it be for Skyelar to alter Peyton's memory? Skye doesn't want to answer it at first, probably because she knows that it's a bad answer, but she does eventually say, "It's really easy to do. It's super easy to get inside Peyton's mind without her ever knowing at all. Skye confesses that she only lets Peyton feel her entering her mind because she knows it pisses Peyton off. So she says, really the truth is, humans and non-mythic creatures are easy targets. She can enter their mind anytime she wants with no effort and do whatever she wants in there without them ever knowing. She can even alter memories if she wants to because the mind is pliable and easy to persuade. All it takes is a mind stronger than yours. By comparison, Skye informs us that she herself cannot do the same thing to Elias because he's a stronger mythic than she is. So a strong mythic will always know when a weaker mythic is entering their mind and they can block them out. But once a strong mythic is in a weaker mind, they can make the weaker mind feel things, misremember things, etc., etc., and that can last for a minute or for 6 months, she supposes. So then the realization hits Peyton that Skyelar was Ezra's victim of this thing for 6 months, and he nearly broke her from the inside out. Skye confesses that Eli saved her because Ezra had disabled her to the point where she couldn't fight him off even if she wanted to, not like she can now. So if Skye is confident that she can do now what Ezra had done to her a year ago, why hasn't she used this newfound ability to learn the truth about the incident? Why is she so reluctant to answer Peyton's questions, to believe that she wasn't involved in the incident?
She basically accepted the blame. She's like, look, everybody said I did it, I'm gonna just... It's not really been something that she's wanted to focus on because it's such a sensitive subject with the entire family. Yeah. And she's already got no stress on her plate, so she's like, I don't really need to focus on this. I've got other bodily threats that are coming at me. Yeah. But that being said, what Peyton has told her kind of has her mind thinking more about, well, maybe there might be some truth to this. Maybe I didn't do it, but it's not been a priority of hers to figure out. I mean, she's not been obsessing and, doing the string theory on the wall. Yeah. About, oh, well, this person to here, and we found it. Okay. Yeah, she hasn't wasted time on it because there's been other quality threats that have been coming her way. Yeah. Okay. Regardless of her reasons, this little sisterly party ends just as quickly as it began because Wesley is bugging Peyton about when she's going to be home. Skyelar blurts out that Peyton shouldn't be with Wesley because Derek was way better for her. But hearing that angers Peyton and causes her to remind Skye very forcefully that she loves Wesley and no one is allowed to doubt that. A complex relationship that we will definitely cover in a few months when we talk about just Peyton. Ooh. But speaking of talking about just one person, Skye does not really want to be alone when Peyton leaves. So she picks up the phone and calls the only distraction that won't reject her. Literally the only person in the county. I mean, seriously. And the one person she should not call. So Ezra, if you haven't guessed, that's who it is. He comes over the minute Skye messages him, like the desperate piece of shit that he is. He sees her gardening in the dark when he pulls up, and he's mystified that she's doing it without the use of her magic. Skye says she finds it soothing to use her hands instead of her magic, and Ezra sees that as an opening to be sleazy. When he reaches out for her hand and kisses her hand, she even lets him and admits to herself that history has a fickle way of allowing her to remember unpleasant feelings in a pleasant way.
And when she looks at Ezra under the bright lights of her patio, she sees dark circles under his eyes. His cheeks are all sunken in. He's hot and feverish. And now she's concerned he's been starving himself. And
Good.
she's invited...
Good.
Well, but the problem is she's invited a hungry sanguise to her home.
Awesome.
So she takes him inside.
Genius, I tell you, genius.
Yeah. She takes him inside her little lab apartment, and Ezra notes for the first time that she has changed, appearance-wise. And this is the only thing he notices, really. He thinks he likes who she is now, but he's not sure. But he does say it's a good look for her, and she likes to think that maybe he has changed a little, since he was so quick to defend her against Cordelia at the town hall yesterday. But she doesn't have that much confidence in him. Like I said, she only thought it a little. Because she even says, you never do anything that doesn't benefit you. In a surprisingly astute moment, Ezra claps back with, you're one to talk. Why did you message me to come over? So Skye tries to placate him by saying she was bored and wanted a distraction. But do you think that's really why? What's in it for her by having Ezra back in her life?
That is the question.
Isn't
because other than, again, carnal relations,
Yeah.
that's it. There's nothing there that, unless it's possible she could use what she's learned in the past year to have some revenge on him.
That's good. That's a good thought. Since Skye, kind of going a little to your point, since she has him there, she decides to use some of his DNA to compare against the anomaly that she took out of Peyton. Much to her surprise, the anomaly does not kill him like it has every other that she's done. His DNA is stronger and actually kills the anomaly instead. And of course, we can't have anything nice. Ezra uses that opportunity to inquire about the relationship between a mythic and a sanguise, since he views that union as the bane of their relationship. It's what tore them apart. The unknown is what tore him apart. So to appease him, even though she really didn't want to, Skye does the same comparison with her own DNA and his, because it's her way of proving to him that the bloodlust exchange would never work. Unfortunately, her plan backfires, because instead of her genetics being consumed and effectively killed by his, she instead turns around and consumes the sanguine's DNA and repurposes it for her body's own needs. So it threw off her theory that Ezra is the original sin sanguise, as Elias implied that he was in book 1.
He's just an old bastard that should be put out of his misery.
And the twisted and dark genetic union that has now been seen gives her a whole new reason to fear the bloodlust exchange. So first of all, I want to know what her new reason is, because she never explicitly states it, but leaves us with little nuggets of her feelings to infer what she's afraid of. So what do you think that is? Why is the bloodlust exchange even more of a danger now, even though it very well appears that she could survive it?
Oh, she can survive it, but the thing is I think what her fear is that she would be a mythic, but she would be more of a creature than she feels comfortable with. Because really, in that situation, Ezra wouldn't be gaining power. He would be destroyed. Okay. And the arrogant ass that he is doesn't even see it. He's sitting there, hey, baby, I want to do this. And because he thinks he's going to get power over her. Yeah. And that's not really going to happen. Her DNA will literally destroy his, and whatever power he has will be added to her.
Okay.
And that's what scares her, because then she become basically a mythic Sanguise hybrid.
That's a weird hybrid we've never heard of before.
Yeah.
Well, after that little experiment, Ezra tries to play coy and dance around the subject of the BLE, the Bloodlust Exchange, but she tells him to chill. And he's frustrated as ever, so he tries to pull his old tricks, pin her against the wall. In the past, Skye would have been scared by such a move, but she wasn't afraid now, so she stays calm. She allows him to kiss her for some reason, but not too deep. She kept feeling like something about him was wrong. Her fear was that if she allowed him to sleep with her tonight, she would be powerless against him again. As ever, Ezra gently punctures Skyelar's lip without her noticing, and tasted one singular tiny drop of her blood. Then he changes tactics and pulls her in close to him in a very unusually intimate way for him. He holds her body and just like nuzzles his face into the crook of her neck just so he can feel her. And she wraps her arms around his neck really loosely, but she embraces him and lets him hold her. And then he asks her again, "Why did you really want me to come over?" And she finally confesses, "I'm worried about Elias, and I needed a distraction." So he tries to convince her to let him be everything that Elias won't be and can't be. Ezra wants to start over and love her the right way, but she says, "Yo, it's much too late for that. No, that's not happening." So Ezra argues that he can give her the life Elias never could. And he claims that Elias cannot give her a real future like Ezra can. And then he wraps her around him and kisses her in a more gentle way than what he's used to. And she enjoys the affection, and she enjoys being touched romantically again. But then she feels his fangs because, one trick pony over here. His fangs brush her neck.
It's not even a one trick. It's just...
Yeah.
It's not even that. It's just that.
Yeah. And he, brushes his fangs over her neck as, a test, and she's like, "This motherfucker ain't changed a bit." So, Ezra confesses that he's tasted her, and he can't have any other flavor without getting sick. So Skye whips together a quick concoction of black bleeding heart flower, copper, iron, alchemic falls water, and 1 drop of her own blood. It ends up being a type of vapor substance that he inhales, and it makes him feel full. But if he eats it, he dies. And she never gave it to him when they were dating because she feared it would make him dependent on her.
Too late.
Even Ezra acknowledges that it was a very kind move on her part. She could have left him to eat it and die, or she could have just kicked him to the curb again and let him suffer until he died. And then that's the last chapter that we see Skye in for the rest of Veiled Commandments. So I have some questions to end it here. Why did Skye choose to help Ezra? Why give him that hope that she actually does care? Is there...
She just may be a good person. You don't want to... As much as you hate somebody, you don't want to see them suffer. I mean, let's face it. We've had this discussion about Chloe Jo.
Yeah.
She should have been blown through the church.
Yep.
In book 1, and she's still around.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other characters. I mean, her own mother, for God's sake, should have a lot of bad things. And yet, she'll still talk to her. She'll still sit there if Cordelia does something actually nice for Skye. She'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
So it may be just that she's just a good person and doesn't want to see somebody suffer. Why? I don't know.
Or
maybe it's a flaw in the human genome. I don't know.
Well, I want to thank you both for being part of today's discussion. Huge thanks to my hubby for sharing his love of the Angel of Death series with us today as well. You can expect to see him in several of these Murmur of Murr County episodes, including next week when we talk about Skye's character development and motives in book 4, the Good Shepherd. Be sure you subscribe to the Composition of Imagination so you don't miss anything in the Murmur of Murr County series. We are just getting started in this, and it is only going to get more fun, entertaining, and revealing as we learn more about these characters. So if you enjoy our content, give us a thumbs up, tell us what you think in the comments. And one quick reminder before we go, the first 4 books in the Angel of Death series are available directly on my website for prices cheaper than anywhere else. Plus, you can request an autograph from me before you receive your book. And if you subscribe to my quarterly newsletter, all subscribers are getting free shipping on every Angel of Death order for the entirety of 2023. So it's a really good reason to sign up. I don't bug you and spam you with stuff. And just another quick reminder, next month, March, marks the 2-year anniversary of the publication of my very first book, the first book in the Angel of Death series, In the Beginning. So be sure you have subscribed to the Composition of Imagination, because my book guardians, maybe even this one, are going to take the reins for several episodes. I have no idea what we're going to discuss because I am going to be put in the hot seat and be the one answering all the questions this time. So it'll probably be something that'll prompt story time and, you know, origin stories and writing processes and all that stuff. You might even be able to get some foreshadowing out of me if you're lucky. I don't know. Just tune in and watch. It's going to be a good time. That segment begins 2 weeks from today. So thank you guys for hanging in there till the end. We appreciate every single one of you. We love you. You rock. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Catch up on the Angel of Death series today. The first 4 entries are now available directly at StevieJoAuthor.com.